Hello on Woden's Day. So, after having the POTUS SOTU yesterday, let's have a look at Mitt Romney's federal taxes. Everyone seems to be going woo-woo-wah-wah over them. Bottom right, we've got 14.5% is what he actually paid in 2010. The blue, uppy sticky thing, 22.8% is what Obama is proposing the tax structure to get people like him to pay. And the 25.8 is the current law. In 2013, when the Bush tax cuts drop off, if the Bush tax cuts drop off ever, maybe not ever. So it's more likely to be either the 22.8 in the future, or maybe it will still always be the 14.5, or maybe less if Romney gets in. Right, let's have a look at the Slate and Matt Iglesias, who's written an worthwhile reading article on the POTUS SOTU and employment and the general economy of the United States. Matt Iglesias, economist, can write some good stuff. There is no doubt that globalization has inflicted massive harms on individual American families and even whole communities. This is the old buggy whip thing, that life is moving forward, but with globalization it's moving forward at a more rapid clip. The reality that Chinese economic growth, in many ways the greatest success story of our time, has been painful for many, should be a great teachable moment for a progressive president to make the case for a generous social safety net. As in, these things are going to happen. They're happening. They're always going to happen now with this great working revolution going on. And it's only fair to have a decent social safety net for the people that temporarily fall out of regular employment. The conservative article of faith that hard work and determination guarantee economic security is now a cruel lie. And I think, I don't go for the political, but I think I can agree with that. I mean, it's just going to happen. It doesn't matter how dynamic you are. If your industry is hit because it becomes not viable for any particular reason, you lose your job. You can be as dynamic as you like. You can say you can go and get another one, but it just obviously isn't that easy anymore, is it? No. So on your bike really doesn't quite cut it. People lose jobs because of shifts in global trade patterns, because of new technologies, and because of macroeconomic currents beyond their control. This is the nature of a dynamic capitalist economy, and to acknowledge it and the need for government countermeasures is in no way to repudiate the considerable virtues of the system. So you can see Matt Iglesias is not against it, so I don't know if that makes you want to go and read more of the article. Instead, Obama wants to shelter American industry from competition abroad. Not completely, but any move in that direction is well dodgy. He notes that his administration has brought trade cases against China at nearly twice the rate as the last administration, and promises to rejigger the tax code to reward or punish firms based on where they locate jobs. It's a very slippery road to go down when the government tries to control something as wildly, hugely powerful as globalization. Very tricky. To imagine you're going to get it right is very big-headed. Right. Let's go to Los Angeles, Sacramento. The nation's largest public pension fund, the California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, posted a 1.1 return on its investment portfolio in 2001. Now, it's really been doing well over 2009 and 10, surprisingly well. I've mentioned it a couple of times. The 2011 performance was well below the estimated average return of 7.75. So it'll still be balanced out by the good years, but 1.1's not exactly hitting it out of the park. $229.5 billion in CalPERS. That's quite amazing, isn't it? Provides retirement and other benefits for 1.6 million state and local government employees. CalPERS' annual investment results, whose volatility has echoed that of the overall markets, has become the focal point in an ongoing debate about the looming pension fund liabilities. You're not going to get 7.75 year in, year out for years to come. You're just not. Down at the bottom, during the 2011, now this is calendar year, not tax year, calendar year, CalPERS lost 7.95 on its public equity investments, lost 2.29 on its hedge fund investments, but earned 12.38 on bonds and earned 9.92 on real estate. The real estate was a good workout there for 2011, but most of the gains over the last 3 years probably have been on that bond portfolio, and with rates getting, you'd imagine, as low as they can possibly get, those bond gains surely are coming to an end, and the major gains will be looked for in equities, which is obviously possible, but it's not going to be a regular 7.75. It's going to be a very up and down affair, we can imagine, over the next 5 to 10 years. Comparing ATA Trucking Index and Ceridian Diesel Fuel Index, this is the economy powered by diesel trucking in the United States, calculated risk blog. ATA Trucking has taken an absolute wang up there. It must be based on something. It can't be a total anomaly. So we can imagine that the Ceridian might go up as well. All in all, it says that the United States is not falling into a hole. It is still on the road. US agency cuts reserves estimate for key gas field. This is Marcellus Shale, United States. The United States Department of Energy has slashed its estimate for the recoverable reserves of natural gas in the Marcellus Shale, a field at the center of the American gas boom. In its annual outlook, the Department's Energy Information Energy lowered its estimate for unproved, technically discoverable gas reserves in the Marcellus, which centered in Pennsylvania, from, note these numbers, this is quite a move, 410 trillion cubic foot down to 141 cubic foot. Those are trillion cubic feet, footsies. That also led the department to cut its estimate for total US shale gas reserves by 41% to 482 trillion cubic feetsies. However, the EIA raised its estimate for future gas production from last year, predicting that gas production over the next 25 years to 2035 would be 7% higher than it forecast a year ago. So strange they're bringing the recoverable reserves all the way down, but the production estimates up. Chris Nelder, writing in Slate as well, follow this article to get more information on what the EIA is up to, really is stating that they've new information is coming in, saying that your reserves are a lot lower, which they've accepted and put forward. But they have not yet knocked that information into the production numbers, and that'll come later. So the reserves numbers have come down from the EIA, but not yet the production numbers. That will necessarily follow. And gas is such an easy thing to listen to the blah blah and get totally carried away. Gas is good. Gas is wonderful that it's there and can be exploited. But we have things like this. Chris Nelder. All potential resources, 95 years gas, trillions of cubic feet. But what is that, all potential resources? It really includes, do you think there might be some gas over there? Oh, yeah. Not really, eh? when it comes down to reality, we're much better to be moving closer towards the middle one, proved reserves and probable resources. Do you think there will be some over there? Oh, there could be. Well, why? And you have to say why it should be there. Well, it's right next to this one, and geologically it's probable. Okay, then we'll put it in number, in the middle one. But the real proved reserves give us 11 years of gas for the United States. Not so impressive. The numbers will be in between, but it's not half as impressive as quite a lot of media that I've read saying that it's the new revolution and just turn everything over to gas and we can pump it. No, it's going to be a lot more tricky than that. If you turn your entire infrastructure over to gas and it lasts 15 years, 20 years, then you're only going to have to repay to turn it back to something else. It's like most things, not as easy as it seems on the surface. Cullen Roche, Prague Cap, starts an article with this. Richard Koo, who we knew. Latest note has been a bit of sectoral balances mixed in with clear understanding that the US is not going to become Greece. Fair enough. Now he just needs to get rid of his belief that banks lend reserves and could create hyperinflation via QE, and we'll be on the same page. This is a changing trend we've seen over the years as more and more economists come around to the understanding that being the currency issuer matters, an epiphany Paul Krugman has recently had. In this note, Koo cites the fact that these myths still threaten the global economy. Let's just pop up to that. The idea of Koo, who works for Nomura, which is a bank, investment bank, saying that QE can cause hyperinflation. It's an extrapolation of Austrian economics or just normal economic thinking of the way the banking system works. I'd just like to put this out to you and give you something to think about, because I can't get it in my head comfortably. We know from our talk about capital requirements that what we have is capital on the asset side of the bank's balance sheets. Now, we know from quantitative easing in the United States and the United Kingdom that a lot of those assets have been bought by the central bank and replaced on the asset side of the balance sheet by cash. In Europe, the ELTRO 3-year is a swapping of those assets from the balance sheet to the central bank in return for cash. Okay, so what Koo is saying, and most everybody does say, that one day the banks will be lending these cash reserves out and create an inflationary boom. I'd just like you to follow the thinking that's arrived here. How we know banks lend. Now, from the video at the weekend, we know that when a bank, for instance, makes a mortgage loan, it does so by inventing money from nowhere. It puts the money on the liability side of its balance sheet for the person to take that money away, and puts on its asset side a mortgage contract to balance out the money that was created. Fine, that's a balance sheet. Those two actions balance. The money's gone away when it's been taken out by the person, but the initial balance was there, and that's what you need on a balance sheet. When a balance sheet becomes unbalanced, there's too many assets for the liabilities, what we have there is an extra amount of money, which is equity. That is then owned by the equity holders, the owners of the company. Right. But let's imagine that a bank has done QE or ELTRO, swapped assets off its balance sheet to its central bank, and has cash on its asset side. Now, if it makes a loan from that cash on its asset side, that is, say, $1 million, negative on the asset side, it creates a liability on the deposit side, on the customer's deposit side that's taken away, and it creates a contract for that mortgage of $1 million on the asset side. So that would create a liability of $1 million, an asset of $1 million, but a minus $1 million on the reserve side, unbalancing the balance sheet and taking $1 million out of owner's equity. I can't think why a bank would ever lend money from its asset cash side. Can you tell me? Move on to this in the end, a thing for Europe, and an interesting thing to know. I don't know what other newspapers online or whatever you follow, but most all of the ones I follow have got an ongoing and have had an ongoing money crisis section every day for the last, was it been going on for 6 months now? Maybe a year. That shows the crisis is still kicking, eh? And I like this breaking news. I forget, this is probably the Telegraph crisis in action section. At 9:17, breaking news. We are hearing reports that the European Commission has rejected Spain's request for more time to meet its budget deficit targets. And when you think there's an awful lot of ramifications in there. Spain, sovereign nation, makes its budget up, but it's been given targets by the European Commission and it's not hitting them, and says, can we have some more time, please, European Commission, to get our budget in order? And the European Commission says no. There are big ramifications for that sort of thing. And I'll just leave you with, because before I started this presentation I was noticing that the European Commission and various parliamentary leaders are pushing hard the central bank to take losses on its portfolio of Greek debt. What normally happens is the private people take it in pounds per square inch, private sector involvement. It's only the private sector that are negotiating their losses on the Greek default. And the ECB and the IMF stand aloof. And the government and European Commissions in Europe, people are pushing the ECB to take a haircut on their portfolio of Greek bonds, which is quite a big move if they go for it. But it'll be quite a big battle even if they don't go for it. Interesting times. Thank you. Bye.